Welcome to the Blitz and Glory podcast, your home for all things college football. I'm your host, Alec. Let's dive right into it. On today's show, I will be recapping week 9 of college football, giving you my predictions for the next head coaches at the following schools, game picks for week 10, and 3 bold predictions. We start with last Tuesday. We had 2 games, and here's the recap for both of them. First one was Kennesaw State at Florida Atlantic. We had Kennesaw State winning this game, and they did. And Kennesaw State is surprisingly 5-2 this year. I think all of us in the preseason said that Kennesaw State, it was going to take another year before they became good. And it seems we were a year early on them, and there's a chance if other group of 5 teams lose that Kennesaw State could make the playoff. And I want to see the stats from this game, the box score, because there's a so Amari Odom got the start for Kennesaw State. He went 10-15 for 205 yards and a TD with no interceptions, a QBR of 85, and then you had Dexter Williams go 2 for 2 for 79 yards and a TD. So it looks like Amari Odom is actually the starting quarterback here for Kennesaw State. And I'm not going to say that I didn't talk about him in the preseason, but I did kind of talk about him in the terms that I said that there's a chance Amari Odom might be the best quarterback on Kennesaw State's roster. So then we look at the rushing stats. Alexander Diggs had 11 carries for 69 yards and touchdown. You had Chase Belcher with 65 yards and a touchdown. Amari Odom had a rushing touchdown as well on 36 yards, 30 yards and a rushing touchdown for Dexter Williams. 18 yards rushing for Coleman Bennett. I was impressed here with the entire offense, rushing offense for Kennesaw State. The total, they had 214 yards rushing, and they had 4 rushing touchdowns. So, and like I said earlier, Dexter Williams, both quarterbacks had a TD pass. And let me Christian Moss also had a receiving touchdown. Christian Moss had a touchdown catch on 93 yards. And Coleman Bennett had 1 catch, 76 yards, and a touchdown. This offense for Kennesaw State is, as you can see, they put up 45 points. And to me, that's a really good offense. Now we go and look at the Florida Atlantic side. FIU, their quarterback went 22 of 36 for almost 300 yards passing and a TD. Keon Jenkins. And it's going to take FIU fans, I want to say this, This is improvement from last year, but wait for Willie Simmons to get his guys in there. Because some of these guys are still from the old coaching staff from last year at FIU. So wait for him to get his first batch of recruits into FIU. And it might take 2 or 3 years for them to consistently be contenders in the Conference USA. I will say there was a couple of guys that were impressive in the rushing game for FIU. Kajan Owens, 20 carries, 166 yards and a touchdown. To me, that's impressive. And you can see 8.3 yards per rush. That means he wasn't getting touched until he was to the second, even the third level of the defense. And I need to give credit where it's due. I was one of the people that said, yes, FIU was going to improve a bit, but this is a big improvement. 3 wins from, I think they only had 1 or 2 last year. They had 1 win. This is a 2-win improvement. But Kajan Owens, FIU, you might lose Kajan Owens if he's not a senior. You might lose him to a bigger program. And that's where you need a guy like Anthony Kyrie. 8 carries, 44 yards and a touchdown. Look at all these running backs. Except for, Jenkins and Lyons didn't really do anything in a rushing game. But Kajan Owens, and let me say this, Kyrie also had a rushing touchdown. But look at the average yards per rush. Owens at 8.3. Kyrie 5.5 yards per rush. Quan, I'm not going to even, he was at 7 yards per carry. That's 3 running backs that were basically untouched every time they touched the football. And that just tells you, I'm not going to say how bad Kennesaw State's defense is, but how susceptible Kennesaw State's defense is to the run. And this kid, Alex Perry, 7 catches, 75 yards. He was averaging 10 yards per catch, 10 and a half, almost 11. Again, like I just said about their running game, their pass game seems to have the same success. And the kid that had the rushing touchdown, he also had 64 yards receiving. And then you had Marquand Anderson, 5 catches for 49 yards, 9.8 yards per catch. That's ridiculous. Eric Nelson, 13 yards per catch. Kyle McNeil had 2 catches, 37 yards, 18 and a half yards per catch. Jackson Verdugo, 1 catch, 21 yards, 21 yards per catch. Ross Ferranat, 1 catch, 8 yards. You see where I'm going with this? Florida International's offense is good. They just ran into Kennesaw State, who has a better offense. If they were playing somebody else, you believe me, this would have been a lot closer of a game, I think, if they weren't playing Kennesaw State. Western Kentucky, Louisiana Tech. As you see, Western Kentucky won 28-27. This took overtime. Let's look at Western Kentucky. Rodney Tisdale was the starting quarterback for Western Kentucky, which I think means our boy Maverick MacGyver is either hurt or he got benched. But Rodney Tisdale went 21 of 34 for 227 and a TD, but he also threw an interception. And he had 17 carries for 73 yards, 6.1 yards per rush. That I can see why Western Kentucky decided to change quarterbacks. Because MacGyver's not much of a runner. And then you put a guy like Tisdale in there. He's more of a dual threat guy. He can throw the ball, but he can also run it. And I do like the rushing game. You got Marvis Parrish had 33 yards rushing. George Hart, the third, had 26 yards rushing, but he had 2 rushing TDs. I like that. And you can see the rest of their rushing offense didn't really Cameron Flowers didn't really do anything. Katie Hutchinson, Henry, and Wright, they really didn't have an effect. Katie Hutchinson in the pass game then. In the receiving game, 66 catches, 76 yards. He averaged 12 yards per catch. That's just that again, that's ridiculous. Matthew Henry, 52 yards receiving. And you had Jackson West at 25 yards receiving. Parrish had 18. 17 from Cam Flowers. Lavelle Wright had 1 catch for 15 yards, and he had the only receiving touchdown for Western Kentucky. This was not, if you were looking for high scoring Conference USA games, this was not the one for you. As you can see, Blake Baker for Louisiana Tech threw for 340 and a touchdown. But I'm going to say this. If you throw the ball 45 times, you're not going to win. There's just no way around it. You throw the ball 45 times, you're not winning the game. That is just not going to happen. 9 times out of 10, if you throw the ball 45 times, you're going to lose. Baker had 49 yards rushing. Their rushing game wasn't too bad. Their rushing touchdown was Andrew Burnett, on 32 yards. 32 yards and a rushing touchdown. The pass game, you had Marleon Jackson, 6 catches, 103 yards. Yeah, that's, if your top receiver has 100 yards, that's good. But then you look at the guys following it. Gandy had 56 yards. Their running back had 52 yards. Watson had 39. Eli Finley had 36. Jalen Mickens, 29. And in Omari Wiggins, only 12 yards receiving. And you had Piro, 2 catches for 7 yards. And you had Everhart with 1 catch for 6 yards. You're not going to win a game. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I watched this entire game. Louisiana Tech had a chance to win this game, and they blew it. They were up 27-20 with just about 3.5 minutes left, and they had a chance to kill the clock, to zap the clock, and they let Western Kentucky get the ball back, and Western Kentucky went down and scored. Then you got Delaware beating Middle Tennessee. good win for Delaware. Middle Tennessee is probably going to be looking for a new head coach because their head coach is probably going to leave and take a bigger job, and you'll hear about it later. Another impressive team this year has been Missouri State. They beat They beat New Mexico State. They beat the New Mexico State Aggies, and I've just been impressed. First year in the big time for Missouri State, and they win. I've been really impressed. South Alabama and Georgia State. Somebody had to get their second win of the season. And I guess you could say and South Alabama wanted it more than Georgia State. I'm sorry to say this. I think Del McGee might be the next head coach to get fired. And that's saying something because his name has been in the rumors for coaches that could get canned. And I think he's the next one to get fired. Then we get down to North Texas and Charlotte. Okay, I'm going to say this before I give my briefing on North Texas. As you can see, they scored 7 points in the first quarter. They kind of let Charlotte stick around for a little bit, but once the second half started, you can see they scored a touchdown and a field goal in both the third and fourth quarter, and their defense stepped up and held Charlotte to only 3 points in the second half. If I'm USF, if I'm University of South Florida, I do not want to see North Texas. If I make the conference championship game in the American, I do not want to see North Texas as my opponent. Because they're going to have in the back of their mind what happened to them in Denton. And I would bet you, if they get another chance to play USF at home, they're not going to let that happen again. Boise State and Nevada, this wasn't much of a game, as you can see. Nevada had a chance early. They were up 3. They were tied at 3. But then Boise State just took over. They scored 24 unanswered points, which they scored 21 unanswered points to beat Nevada 24-3. Maddox Matson had a subpar game, and I'm not going to be surprised if Boise State sneaks into the playoff again. I will not be. Now we get to Saturday. And before I recap Indiana and UCLA, I need to ask, where is Rick Neuheisel? Has he ran away into a corner? Because quite frankly, I remember him saying on Inside College Football during the entire week last week that he thought UCLA was going to go into Bloomington and upset Indiana. Well, Rick Neuheisel, did that happen? Absolutely not. Fernando Mendoza threw for 168 yards and 3 TDs. Roman Hemby had 2 TDs on the ground. And E.J. Williams went for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. And this game was over by half. As you can see, UCLA mustered 2 field goals. And I think it's safe to say UCLA has faced reality and fallen back down to earth. And Indiana is no joke. The last year was not a fluke. And I can say that as an Ohio State fan. Last year was not a fluke for Indiana. I give them major props, and they did the right thing by locking up Kirk Cignetti to an 8-year deal worth $96 million to keep him in Bloomington so he can't be pried away to go to Penn State or Florida or any of the jobs that are open, and I'm going to talk about later on. after we recap the rest of these games. Then we get down to Texas A&M and LSU. I how do I put this nicely? You see that the first two quarters, LSU scored a touchdown, and then they had 11 points in the second quarter. Third quarter, they didn't score at all. They scored a touchdown in the fourth. But you look at Texas A&M, 14 points in the first quarter. Second quarter, okay, didn't score anything. Third quarter, 21, 14 in the fourth. Texas A&M just, they lulled LSU to sleep, and they said, okay, you've fallen asleep now? Time for us to wake up. And they put the BTA to LSU, and it cost Brian Kelly his job. And yes, I do think Brian Kelly will find a new home. I don't know where, but A&M is, I can say this with all confidence now. They are not frauds. They are not a joke. They are for real. Now, this was a really good game. South Carolina, Alabama. South Carolina had a 22-14 lead. 22-14 going into the fourth quarter. And they let Alabama back into this game. And I'm like, oh no. You let Alabama stick around. We all know how that ends. We all know how it ends when you let Bama stick around. It does not end well at all. You end up losing. And that's what happened to South Carolina, because, I mean, there was a controversial play toward the end of the game where Lenore Sellers was down, but he fumbled, and they reviewed it and said, yes, it was a fumble. And I think this seals the fate, and I know South Carolina fans don't want to hear this. I think you might lose Shane Beamer to a head coaching job that becomes open. And no, it will not be Virginia Tech. It might be somewhere else. Then we get to Wisconsin and Oregon, and this game was, as you can see, boring. 21-7 was the final. I mean, Wisconsin's offense is just atrocious. My dummy of the week is coming up. It is not Wisconsin and Oregon. It is another team. But Oregon, I don't get why people are saying they're frauds, they're a joke. They have one loss, and it was to undefeated Indiana. Calm down. Georgia Tech, Syracuse. Now, Syracuse fell the same fate that other teams did, as you can see. Syracuse only scored 16 points against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's another team that is not a joke. They are for real. 3 points in the first quarter, 17 in the second, 14 in the third quarter, and then one measly touchdown in the fourth quarter. I hope if you were picking against me when I did my game picks last week, you still took Georgia Tech and you did not do the irresponsible thing and took Syracuse, because that would be bad. Ole Miss, Oklahoma. This is Oklahoma's second straight loss. They lost to Texas, and now they lost to Ole Miss. Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss, I think he's going to keep this job the rest of the season and force Austin Simmons to jump into the transfer portal at the end of the season. Unless Trinidad Chambliss decides, oh, you know what? I'm one and done. I'm going to the NFL after this year. Doesn't matter. Ole Miss, they're going to be I think there's going to be 3 or 4 SEC teams that do make the playoff. And I think Ole Miss is going to be one of them. I know what Miami fans are going to say about this. Yes, I know we gave up 7 points to Stanford. You beat a bad Stanford team. But still, I got to give Carson Beck credit. It was a nice bounce back after last week when y'all got when you got upset by Louisville because Carson Beck single handedly lost you the game by throwing 4 interceptions. And Mark Fletcher Jr. probably is the reason that Miami won last week with his 106 yards rushing and 3 rushing touchdowns. I just have to ask you this, Miami, how much do you actually trust your defense? Because I would not trust your defense at all. Missouri and Vanderbilt. First, before I give my takeaway from this game, speedy recovery to redshirt freshman quarterback at Missouri, Bo Pabula. He left this game in an air cast on his left leg. Get speedy recovery. Get well soon, Bo. But Matt Zellers came in and played admirably for Missouri. 14 to 23, 138 yards and a touchdown. Not bad for a kid that has only played in mop-up duty this year. Ahmad Hardy had a below average Ahmad Hardy game. Coleman Jr. for Missouri, as you see on the screen, 7 catches, 109 yards. This was a old school SEC defensive battle, and I don't think Clark Lee's going anywhere. I don't think either of these coaches are. Even though Eli Drinkwitz's name keeps coming up for the Florida job, I don't think either of these coaches leave their current school. BYU, Iowa State. Everybody picked, there was a lot of people that picked Iowa State to win. I stuck by, I believe in Bear Bachmeier. BYU is for real. They're going to make the playoff, ladies and gentlemen. 41-27 win. I'm going to keep it short and sweet with Texas Tech. You didn't have to do them boys like that, Texas Tech. You did not have to shut out Oklahoma State, North Carolina, and Virginia. I don't have North Carolina as one of the teams that I think is going to need a new head coach. I think all this talk about Belichick getting bought out, I think he comes back one more season after this year, and then he leaves. But Virginia, this is how close Virginia was to losing their second game of the year. If North Carolina gets that 2-point conversion, we come out here today and talk about how North Carolina upset number 16 Virginia. But the 2-point conversion fell short. So therefore, Virginia survives. I need to ask Tennessee fans. How do you give up 34 points to Kentucky, who's probably going to look for a new head coach at the end of the season, and Mark Stoops is going to be gone? How do you let that happen? Joey Aguilar with another good game. Star Thomas had a good game. Chris Brazel had a good game. South Florida and Memphis. This was a really good game at noon on Saturday. USF had a chance to tie it at they had the lead for a little bit and then let Memphis come back and take the lead at the very end of the game. I feel bad for Nico Grammatica. 53-yard field goal for the tie, and he missed it. He hooked it left. And I got to give props to Brandon Lewis of Memphis. Kid was playing with a bum ankle that he hurt last week when they got beat by UAB. And again, like I said, mad props to him. He threw for 300 yards and 2 TDs. Byron Brown had 100 yards rushing and 2 TDs. Keyshawn Singleton had almost 90 yards receiving on 7 catches. Louisville and Boston College. Louisville is another team that I think if stuff falls in front of them, they're 19 right now in the rankings. And I think either next week, I think it's next week, is the first release of the college football playoff rankings. So we'll see where they have all these teams bunched up. 41-20, Cincinnati beats Baylor. I'm going to say this. I was wrong about Cincinnati, and I will admit it. Scott Satterfield has done a wonderful job turning around Cincinnati. Okay, this Texas, how do you almost lose to Mississippi State? How does it take overtime? Arch Manning did have a good game. Blake Shapen went off 381 yards and 4 touchdowns. Washington and Illinois. Washington put the beats on Illinois. Arizona State got upset. Some of these I'm just going to quickly run through, like Arizona State, Houston. Houston, I guess all it took was them getting a quarterback. And whoop-de-doo, look what happens. They get a quarterback, they start winning games. Michigan State. Michigan, I'm still not sold. Michigan State's still in the middle of a rebuild. Michigan is, I think, good, but I don't think they're playoff caliber good. Northwestern and Nebraska, this was a good game. Northwestern has been a surprise this year, 5-3, and nobody expected that. Purdue and Rutgers. Here's another game where Rutgers had a shot at winning this, but they could not. They could not finish. And I understand it's Barry Odom's first year. Is there a way Purdue still gets the 6 wins? Maybe. How does SMU lose to Wake? Wake Forest is 5-2. I'm not surprised. Kansas State, what a win. And everybody was saying, oh, Chris Kleiman's on the hot seat. He's going to get fired. He's going to get fired. No, he's not. App State, ODU, semi-low scoring game. Good Fun Belt game. In the MAC, we had a stunner. Kent State beats Bowling Green 24-21. Kent State's looking for a new head coach. Could they get 6 wins? I think it's possible. Ohio, it seems no Tim Albin, no problem. Auburn bounces back after losing last week to Georgia. After losing last week, I don't remember to who. Akron wins. But Rice beats UConn. New Mexico beats Utah State. The clown of the week. Here's the dummy of the week. Minnesota giving up 41 points to Iowa. An Iowa offense that, yes, okay, they have scored over 30 points this year, but they haven't scored over 40. And they somewhat did today. 41 points is a new season high for Iowa. So, Minnesota, you get the distinction of being clown of the week. Washington State beats Toledo. Pitt demolishes NC State. San Diego State wins against Fresno State. Southern Miss. I'm afraid Southern Miss is going to fall the same fate that Marshall did. I'm afraid Southern Miss is going to lose their coach after this year to a bigger program. Mark my words, I don't know where, but you'll find out in a little bit. Navy is still undefeated after beating FAU 42-32. And you know what? I got to give props to Temple. 5-3 under your Casey Keeler. I thought it was going to be year 2 or year 3 where they won 5 games. But Temple, they're doing something in the American. Not saying that they're going to make the American Championship game. I mean, they might have a slim outside chance of doing it if everybody else in front of them loses. Ball State, Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois takes the win. You know what? I'm going to give another dummy of the week. Minnesota was number 1. Second dummy of the week is UMass. You're 0-8. Why did you go back up to being in the MAC again? You should have stayed an independent. You are not very good. Miami of Ohio wins. Rich Rod, I think it's going to be a tough first couple years in Morgantown for him. Georgia Southern loses to Arkansas State. Troy wins. Wyoming. I think they really. Okay. And the last game is Utah and Colorado. Dion. Dion, you need to start the freshman. You need to start Juju Lewis. If you don't, he's probably going to transfer. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we get to the second segment, which is head coaches predicting the next head coach for 14 total schools. And we start with UCLA. UCLA is number 1, and UCLA is going to need somebody that is inexperienced and I think that's going to be D'Anton Lynn, the defensive coordinator at USC. I think that'll be the next head coach at UCLA. Don't ask why. I just think that's what's going to be. Penn State. I think they go big fish hunting, but it's not for a guy. It's not for someone you expect. I think they go big fish hunting for Jimbo Fisher, who has been out of coaching for a while. I think Penn State goes after him. He was good recruiting at Texas A&M and Florida State. I think he wants to get back into coaching now. And I think Penn State would be the perfect opportunity for him. Florida. I know everybody wants to say, oh, Golish, Brian Hartline. I don't think they go after any of those guys. I think they take Derek Mason from Middle Tennessee University in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Yes, you heard me right. They're going to hire Derek Mason, the head coach at Middle Tennessee, to be their next head coach. Now, I've got an interesting name for Oregon State because they're going into the new Pac-12, and I think they're going to take Chris Peterson and make him their next head coach. Chris Peterson to Oregon State. Virginia Tech is going to go to the group of 5, and they're going to take John Summerall from Tulane. I like that. If that's going to be the guy they hire from the group of 5, I would love it because they are a little tight on money, but I think they can make the logistics work. Then you've got LSU. And I think LSU goes the group of five route as well. And I think they go with JMU head coach Bob Chesney. Because, like Kirk Cignetti, anywhere Bob Chesney goes, he wins. And I think he can win at LSU, and he's going to have a lot of money to recruit. Next is UAB, and I think they're just going to promote Alex Mortensen to the head coach, to be their new head coach. I don't think they're going to go out and hire somebody. I think they're going to determine that Coach Mortensen has been a nice little shot of energy, and I think we need to give him the opportunity to at least be the temporary head coach going into next year and do further reevaluation after next season. Then we go to Arkansas, and I've got an interesting name for the Arkansas job. I know many people are saying, oh, Bobby Petrino, Zach Robinson, John Gruden. I don't think it's going to be any of those guys. I think it's going to be Brian Harsin, the former coach at Boise State and Auburn. Yes, you heard me right. Brian Harsin will be the next head coach at Arkansas. Then we get to Kentucky. And I'm going to take Kent State, Kentucky is on here. Kent State, we all know they're looking for a head coach because their head coach got let go in the offseason. Give me Matt Wells, the offensive coordinator right now for a Big 12 team. He's going to be the next head coach at Kent State. We get to Oklahoma State now. And I think Oklahoma State's going to do the right thing here. And they're going to pry Zach Robinson away from the Falcons and make him their next head coach because it makes all the sense in the world. He knows the state of Kentucky, Oklahoma, really well. He played for Oklahoma State. And I think he would be the perfect head coach for Oklahoma State. We get to Auburn. And they have not fired Hugh Freeze yet, but I think they will eventually. And I think Brett Pry is going to be the next head coach at Auburn for one reason. One reason. It is that, and I'm not saying this because I got to talk to him when he was at Virginia Tech. I think he deserves another chance. I think Virginia Tech just wanted to go into a different. I think Virginia Tech wanted to go a different way with coaching. So that's why they decided to move on from Brett Pry. And I think Brett Pry ends up at Auburn. We get to Kentucky now. And I have an interesting name for the Kentucky job. I know Stoops has not been fired yet. But I think Mark Stoops will be fired by the end of the season. And the name for the Kentucky coaching job, Memphis fans, close your ears, lock your doors. Ryan Silverfield. I think Ryan Silverfield's ready to be a Power 4 head coach. Give me Ryan Silverfield to be the next head coach at Kentucky. NC State is another team that has not fired their head coach yet. I think they will. And when they do, unfortunately, I said this earlier, Southern Miss fans are not going to like this. Charles Huff will be the next head coach at North Carolina State. And then Wisconsin's the final one. And Wisconsin needs somebody that is an offensive-minded head coach. I give Luke Fickell credit where it's due. His 3 years at Wisconsin, he has not had a quarterback. All his quarterbacks seem to get hurt. So, with that being said, I think Eric Morris is going to be the next head coach of Wisconsin. And the next thing is our week 10 game picks. And we start with Tulane and UTSA. I like Tulane in this game to win by a lot. UTSA has had a tough season, so give me Tulane. Memphis and Rice. Give me Memphis coming off a big win against USF. There we go. So give me Memphis, UConn, and UAB. Give me UConn to win. UAB is still awful, even though Trent Dilfer's gone. Navy and North Texas. Here could be a conference championship preview. Give me Navy to win, though. Army and Air Force. The second leg of the battle for the Commander in Chief's trophy. Give me Army to win. East Carolina and Temple. This one I went back and forth on. I ended up landing on East Carolina. Give me East Carolina to win. Tonight we've got UTEP and Kennesaw State. Give me Kennesaw State. Jacksonville State and Middle Tennessee State. Give me Jacksonville State. And then Louisiana Tech and Sam Houston State. Sam Houston is not good. And if for some odd reason Louisiana Tech loses, they should not be allowed in a bowl game. Sam Houston State has not won a game this year. So give me Jacksonville State, Missouri State, and FIU. I'm taking Missouri State. Easy pick. Delaware and Liberty. Give me Delaware to win. Western Kentucky and New Mexico State. Give me Western Kentucky. Bowling Green. There's only 2 games in the MAC this week. Bowling Green and Buffalo. Give me Bowling Green. Western Michigan, Central Michigan. It's the battle of the directional schools in Michigan. Give me Western to beat Central. Ohio State and Penn State. There's people that are crazy out there saying that Penn State's going to upset Ohio State and that Penn State's easily going to get back into the playoff race. Ain't happening. Ohio State by a billion. Rutgers and Illinois, correction. Give me Rutgers. I know people are going to say, oh, Illinois is going to bounce back. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. Give me Illinois to lose to Rutgers. Indiana, Maryland. It's October. Well, it's going to be November, the November Terps. But give me Indiana to win. Michigan State, Minnesota. Minnesota, I would not show up for this game. Michigan State is not happy. They just lost to Michigan. So give me Michigan State. Michigan, Purdue. I wanted to take Purdue so bad, but give me Michigan. USC and Nebraska. Give me USC. Houston and West Virginia. Give me West Virginia to lose. So that means I'm taking Houston. Iowa State, Arizona State. Give me Iowa State. Texas Tech, Kansas State. Here is my upset this week. Give me Kansas State to upset Texas Tech. Baylor, UCF. I'm taking Baylor. I think UCF's luck is going to run out here. They're 5-3. I think they lose to Baylor. Cincinnati, Utah. This is where college game day is going. I am taking Cincinnati to beat Utah. I know what people are going to say. Oh, you're delusional. You're crazy. Okay, fine. Do what you want with it. I'm taking Cincinnati. Kansas, Arizona, and Colorado. Give me Arizona. Colorado's a mess. I talked about it earlier. I just don't. Dion needs to start Juju Lewis unless he wants to lose him in the transfer portal after the season. And Kansas and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, don't show up for this game, please. I beg you, don't. Unless you want to get blown out. And I think you will still get blown out even if you do show up. So give me Kansas. UNLV and New Mexico. Give me UNLV. I think they bounce back and get a win here. Hawaii could be going bowling with another win. Or actually, I think they already are bowl eligible. But I'm going to take Hawaii to beat Wyoming. Fresno State, Boise State. This one was easy. Give me Boise State. James Madison and Texas State. Give me James Madison. Oh, we're not done. No. Not done with game picks yet. We got Marshall and Coastal Carolina. Give me Coastal Carolina. Marshall is awful. I don't think Tony Gibson was ready to be a head coach. Old Dominion and Louisiana Monroe. Give me Old Dominion. Louisiana and South Alabama. Give me Louisiana. Troy and Arkansas State. Give me Troy. Ole Miss and South Carolina. Give me Ole Miss. Tennessee, Oklahoma. Give me Tennessee. Vandy and Texas. Give me Vandy. Georgia, Florida. Give me the Mean Machine in red and black. Give me Georgia. Arkansas, Mississippi State. Give me Arkansas, even though I think Mississippi State's going to win this game. Auburn and Kentucky. Give me Auburn. It's the battle of coaches that are probably, no matter what happens, both going to get fired. Syracuse and UNC. Give me Syracuse. If this was basketball, I would take UNC all day, but it's football. Georgia Tech and NC State. Give me Georgia Tech. Miami, SMU. Here's another upset I have. Give me SMU. Notre Dame and Boston College. Give me Notre Dame. Cal and UVA. Give me UVA to win. Clemson and Duke. Give me Clemson, even though both teams are not particularly really good. Stanford, Pitt. Give me Pitt. Virginia Tech, Louisville. I'm going Virginia Tech a second week in a row. They won last week on Friday night. I'm going with them again this week. Wake Forest and Florida State. One of these teams has got to win. Give me Wake Forest. And then to round out the show, here are my 3 bold predictions for college football this week. Bold prediction number 3, Kennesaw State will win by 25 plus points tonight. Yes, you heard that right. Kennesaw State will beat UTEP by 25 plus. My number 2 bold prediction, Jillian Sayed throws for 300 yards, plus Jeremiah Smith goes for 80 yards versus Penn State. And then my final bold prediction, number 1, at least one top 25 team will lose this week. Correction. At least one top 25 team will get upset this weekend. Your favorite college football analyst, Alec. That's the Blitz and Glory Way signing off. I will see everybody at 5.